Cox Show on 100.7 WMMS.
Hey.
Penis.
I'm not getting that for a few weeks.
Yeah, you're what?
I said I'm not getting that for a few weeks.
You're not getting penis for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
It's
sorry
gonna
to
be
hear
more than
that.
5 inches, let me tell you.
Hell.
Just saying you need to get the mold.
I'm not getting a mold.
Okay.
Why does she need to
Weird.
do that?
She doesn't need to, but she should.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, Poundcake.
Yeah, but it makes the vagina sad.
Oh, does
We
it?
got plenty of other things. I mean, it's not the same, sure.
You're
but
right. If you'd like to join us today, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can just as easily listen passively to the program, right? I love when people call or message or whatever, but there's plenty of people who are like, I don't want to presume on our complicated relationship, so I'll just keep to myself. That's fine, too. But if you'd like to call us at any point, you're going to need to know how to do that. And it's 216-578-1007 or 800-348-1007. You can send a text. It's 35192. I got an email from Drew, who was out in Maslin, and he attached a photo. He said, I'm an avid Magic the Gathering player. I don't know. I know what it is. I don't know the ins and outs of Magic the Gathering. It's a fantasy card game. He said the newest set is slated to release early next month, the theme of which is a murder mystery. So to sort of build hype for the set, they're releasing some spoiler images of the new cards that will be printed. And I'm wondering if the company ripped off Mary Santora's side gig. I'll show it to you here on the screen. Undersea sleuth. Essentially, a fish detective is what it says. Legendary creature, Morska, the undersea sleuth.
Do you know any frontier lawyers that can represent you?
I do. All of my side gigs are finally coming together.
In a really weird way.
Very weird way.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering. It says you have no. Now, I assume that these are, in these fantasy role-playing games, there's cards and they tell you what your powers are and what your point. I never played Dungeons and Dragons. It says you have no maximum hand size at the beginning of your upkeep. Investigate. Again, this might as well be Greek, but the people who play this game, I'm sure, understand what all this means. Morska, the undersea sleuth,
Oh my
fish
God.
detective. Of course, our own Mary Santora. She is not yet licensed in the state of New York.
No, I'm working on that.
There's a lot that goes into that. Here in Ohio, just anybody can become a fish detective.
Also incorrect.
But the nanny state there in New York,
It's
it's
so much paperwork. Bill, you'd hate it.
I
So much
already
paperwork
just
to
hearing
get
about it.
your fish detective license here.
and the test. I
Ugh.
mean, you've got rivers on either side,
Mm-hmm.
so there's plenty of. But good God, I mean,
Cold. They're like,
you're
what- how
lucky
you
if you
feel
get a
about
fish.
Ice baths, like it's an intense process.
I was always fascinated when you would be in New York and you'd see people fishing in the East River. And you're like, God, can you imagine if they've caught a fish, what kind of friggin' fish they pull up out of those rivers, like the Simpsons' three-eyed fish or something. But there's always people out there fishing. It's amazing to me. So thank you, Drew, out there in Maslin. The fish detective is going to be one of the characters. If maybe you're a Magic the Gathering fan. That's been around for a long time, I think. And, as a kid, I would spend a lot of time in comic book stores. That was my thing. But over the years, comic book stores, as these role-playing card games got bigger and bigger, more popular, rather than just selling them to people alongside comic books, a lot of these shop owners were like, oh, we should set some space aside, and then we can host these games. And
That's what keeps a lot of them afloat.
I think you might be
that's
right.
more popular than the comics at this point.
Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, and I don't know what any of that consists of. I had friends that played D&D when I was a kid, but I was not a sword and sorcery guy. I didn't care for it in my heavy metal. I didn't care for it on tiny little cardboard cards, and it didn't appeal to me. But I had a lot of friends that did that, and they had a great time doing it. And they would, of course, have to deal with the slings and arrows that came along with enjoying a game like that. You're called names. You're called nerds. But you have found your people, too. And Drew and his Magic the Gathering fellow players out there, hopefully they'll pour one out for our own Mary Santora every time somebody
I feel like
pulls that fish detective card.
should I feel taken advantage of?
No, you should feel
Honored?
It's an homage.
Okay.
Now, it's an unwitting homage. They don't know that it's you. We know that it's you. We are more in the loop on this than the company that makes Magic the Gathering. You got to think, as long as these games have been around, they're running out of characters to create. They were like, man, we blew our wad on day one with, like, you know, the King of the Ocean and the Mermaid and the Shark Warrior and whatever it is. I don't know if they're all nautical. So for them to come around to this,
The sleuth.
I mean, I would like to think that maybe, and not to put too fine a point on it, but I would certainly like to think that maybe, since this has been out there in the ether for a while, that there's some kind of creative osmosis where somebody was like, I wonder if anyone's ever conceived of a fish detective. And hundreds of miles away in Cleveland, Ohio, we could answer yes.
There is a book I read. I think it's actually the first book I read for pleasure over COVID.
The Illustrated Kama Sutra.
No, it's called Big Magic. It's one of those like, hey, creative types, you should read this book type of things. It had this, I guess,
Were
theory.
you afraid to read it because of the magic?
No, because it was about the universe and fate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there was this theory that all ideas are already in the universe. And they float from one person to another.
Oh,
and when
brother.
the idea gets to you, it's up to you to act on it or not. And if you don't act on it and you don't do anything with that idea, it will go to the next person.
This is why comedians can't get mad at people stealing jokes.
Well, that
They're
sounds
already out there.
it's all floating around. I just grabbed it.
Well, no, it's like for when people are like, oh, I wrote this spec script that I never showed anybody, and then Netflix had the same show a year later. It's like that is kind of how those coincidences are explained, where it's like all the ideas are already out there. If one comes to you, you need to take advantage of it, kind of a thing. So I'm wondering if this fish detective idea has always been out there and the Magic the Gathering people got it.
For a while, you had it.
I had it.
Because no one can own an idea.
I mean,
Exactly. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
if anything, it all goes back to Abe Vigoda, the fish.
The original fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call him the fish. I believe he played a detective numerous times throughout his illustrious career. So it might all just stem from that.
It all or the actual animal.
Or they ripped me off.
The actual animal, the fish. Yeah.
Or the Magic the Gathering people follow this show on YouTube.
That makes the most sense.
That probably,
like,
yeah. At
unbelievable.
AlanCoxShow.com, you mean?
Yeah. Sorry.
Who's assisting today on the show, by the way? I need to look at that before I go to a break so they can give them a shout out. Kirk Land Clothing. Okay. Wow. that sounds like one of them coastal elites.
Yeah.
Oh, Kirk Land Clothing. All right. I'm going to break here. I'll have more money for you. On the way at 2:30, that next keyword for you to grab $1,000 and the Buzzard bookie is on the way.
It's the Alan Cox Show.
On our free iHeartRadio app and your favorite smart device. Just tell it to play the Alan Cox Show.
On iHeartRadio.
iHeart, are you ready?
Our 2024 iHeartRadio Music Awards are coming to Fox.
Live from